Pardon me, but at this point, I need to quickly, just hold on, I need to quickly get them to respond to that bit before we look into the content of those guidelines. Gentlemen, were you or were your parties consulted, or are you insisting that INEC do what you want?
Well, my response to that is that INEC has powers, yes, but that powers is not absolute. Nigeria subscribed to the ECOWAS protocol, and incidentally, our EMB chairman happens to be the EMB chairman for ECOWAS. And in our last brief, he did inform us as to how they even, in other climes, how they consult parties, how they even go to consult parties. It's important that we state it clearly. The primary stakeholders, as far as elections are concerned, is the political parties. INEC cannot conduct election without political parties. So it's the political parties that sponsor candidates. They are the ones that spend the funds. They are the ones that, so they are the primary stakeholders as far as election is concerned. But having said that, the spirit and letters of the ECOWAS protocol entails that there will be a robust consultation. And in fact, the intent is that there should be a consensus on the issues, because INEC as an independent, as an arbiter, is not meant to take sides. They are not meant to insist that they must adopt this method, because if they do so, it then appears as if they have a vested interest. So in order to show that they don't have vested interest, what they will do is to throw it open and subject it to a democratic process. If majority of our political parties favor a particular method, that this is a method that they will feel that will be credible, that will be transparent, because the perception is very important as far as the election is concerned.
Okay, let's get Chief Godson Okoye. Don't worry, we'll come back to that as we progress. Chief Godson Okoye, quickly, your response to that.
This is very interesting. This is very interesting. I'm happy my colleague and my namesake started by citing what the law said. But having said that, there is nowhere in that law that is saying that INEC will make rules for its own use. It is for the political parties. And like the chairman said, and like it's even in the Electoral Act, in consultation with critical stakeholders. Who are the critical stakeholders here? The political parties. And they are telling you, this is how this thing can be done. And of course, when I listen to my colleague, you begin to understand why this system does not work. When you have people that are so insensitive to people's opinion, what kind of system are we doing?
Yeah, but Chief Godson Okoye, did
INEC why INEC can?
Yeah, but just a minute. Did INEC consult with you, with your party? Wasn't there that consultation?
That's what we're saying. They sent information to us. Hold on. I'm answering your question. They sent information to parties about 4 days to the meeting with them, and having said that, we raised the issues with the guideline they are proposing. If you are making proposal, you are consulting. You cannot give me a haircut without my being with you. It doesn't work. Is INEC going to field candidates? Are they going to monitor campaign? Are they going to be the ones sponsoring candidates for election? For goodness sake, if we want this system to work, if we want these guidelines to work, political parties must be listened to. I mean, at the high point of 2015 election, parties said the election should be shifted. Did INEC consult the election on that day? They listened to political parties. But, okay, even as of today, we're just seeing your newspaper review, and they say 7 procedure for election. 7 procedure for election. Who did they consult with that? Who did they consult before they brought that? Are this procedure they are bringing part of these guidelines? You see, you don't even need to be a lawyer to understand that this document, if it is left as it is, according to my party, it is just a manual for rigging. And of course, in the absence of the new Electoral Act, my party's opinion is this guideline plus Amina Zachary minus the Electoral Act, it is equal to a compromised election.
All right, Mr. Inosantukoye.
No, just a minute.
Go ahead.
The issue here is
after whether you can make it. You must
just a minute. He has acknowledged that the Independent National Electoral Commission forwarded the electronic version of the guidelines to all the registered political parties. The Independent National Electoral Commission also forwarded these guidelines to civil society groups and organizations, and to the media. Having forwarded these guidelines to them, we also had consultation with political parties, with civil society groups and organizations, with the media, and other critical stakeholders. The next question will be, having listened to all the critical stakeholders, has the Independent National Electoral Commission taken on board some of their suggestions and some of the comments they made in relation to the guidelines? And my answer is yes. He has not asked whether we have made further adjustments or further amendments or further alterations to the guidelines based on some of the suggestions we received from all the critical stakeholders. And my answer to that is yes. The Independent National Electoral Commission, as a commission, met yesterday and took a look at the existing guidelines, which we forwarded to the political parties, looked at the suggestions made by the parties, civil society groups, the media, the security agencies, and other critical stakeholders. And we have taken all those concerns on board. The ones we believe are consistent with the law and consistent with some of the things we are doing, we've inputted them into the guidelines. And by Monday, we are going to release the final guidelines that will be used for the conduct of the 2019 elections to all the political parties, having taken on board all the suggestions they made. So it is not as if this commission is insensitive. This commission will consult. But as I said, ultimately, the decision as to what goes into the guidelines is reserved for the Independent National Electoral Commission. It's a power donated to us by law, and we are not going to share that particular power with any of the the political parties we are regulating. We listen to them, but we are going to take the final decision because that is what the law says.
Okay, so gentlemen, not to worry. Just hold your thoughts. You'll respond to it perhaps after Mr. Okoye also responds to some of the issues that both of you have raised, sections 3, subs B, C, and D, before we go to 8, which Dr. Ojinika also spoke about. So, Mr. Innocent Okoye, go ahead and talk to us about what kind of recommendations or are you taking a look at concerning Section 3, which Chief Gostin Okoye raised objections about in terms of the voting points and voting point settlement.
Now in relation to the voting points and voting point settlements, we made it very clear to all the political parties, to civil society groups and organizations, and to all the critical stakeholders, that one, that the issue of voting point settlements, especially for the Federal Capital Territory, is a settled issue because all the political parties and all the critical stakeholders were consulted during the area council elections in 2016, and all those voting point settlements were used in the conduct of that particular election. But in terms of imputing the voting point, giving INEC the power to create voting point settlements as we go into the 2019 elections, we have exited that from the guidelines. But in terms of voting point settlements, it is only in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, that those voting point settlements will be used. Now, why we are treating the voting point settlements as if they are polling units is because when the polling units were established, some of the voting points, some of the new settlements in the Federal Capital Territory had not come into being. In some of these settlements, you have over 10,000 registered voters during the continuous voters registration exercise. And some of them, if we did not create these voting point settlements for them, they are going to trek 10 kilometers to get to their voting, to their polling units. So there is no voting point settlement that is autonomous or completely independent. What we are saying is that for each voting point settlement, we are going to treat it as a polling unit for purposes of administrative convenience and for purposes of voting during the election. But in terms of voting point settlement in any other part of Nigeria, after the 2019 elections, we will sit down as a commission, we will do the necessary consultations and also see in what ways we can also take on board some of these challenges and some of these issues in different parts of the country.
Because the concerns are that your bracket is a multiple of 500 and a maximum of 750 to establish the VPS. And people are concerned that perhaps Abuja is just too little, or it's not the only place where you have multiples of 500 and maximums of 750. We have that also in states. So are you, by extension, going to have the VPS also reflective at the state level?
No, at the state level, what we have done is that any polling unit where we have maybe 3,000 registered voters in a polling unit, for purposes of administrative convenience and for purposes of easing the pain people go through in being on the queue for too long, we will create voting points near the main polling unit. So for each polling unit that has maybe 3,000 to 4,000 registered voters, we create these voting points in the multiples of 500 and 750. So we are going to have assistant presiding officer voting point. So all the assistant presiding officer voting points will also have assistant presiding officers assisting them. At the end of the day, all the votes from the voting points will be collected into from EC8A and then given to the main presiding officer, who will now, the votes from the voting point settlements will be collected into EC8A voting point. And then all of them will be collected and given to the main presiding officer, who will pull all of them together into one EC8A. So that's exactly what we are doing in some of these other states. The voting point settlements we created in Abuja is just for administrative purposes to ease to ease the pains people will go through in terms of going to far places to go and vote. But all the political parties we are consulted as at the time we brought out this new innovation.